guys, welcome back. This week I wanted to bring up an important topic that I get asked about a lot, and that is the topic of strength training as an endurance athlete. So, my background before I got into endurance athletics was in strength training. So, if you remember a few episodes ago, I gave you my background, how I got into fitness, how I found fitness, how I wasn't, your child athlete type of thing. But before I ever took a foot into, thinking about being an endurance athlete, I was a personal trainer. I was a certified personal trainer. I worked in a gym, multiple gyms actually, owned a gym, taught fitness classes, and did one-on-one personal training. And with that personal training certification came a lot of education in strength training. I definitely went through a phase in my fitness path or career where I was heavily focused on strength training and less so on cardio. And I learned a lot in that during that time. And the things that I learned about the most was I learned to appreciate what strength training can do for your body, what it does do for our bodies, what it does for bone density and metabolic health, and how it can just overall, help with muscle tone and that look we generally want when we're trying to be healthy. But as I've gotten older, I care less about looks and more about performance and what makes me happy. But that doesn't mean I don't do strength training. And I will say when I got into triathlon a little deeper and just running into as well, one thing that surprised me was how little strength training was brought up or incorporated into training plans with athletes. And whether or not you're a professional athlete or age grouper or just someone who likes to do it for fun, I will emphasize that continuing some sort of strength training in your routine is extremely important. So why? Okay, why is it important? And it is going to look different. Back in the day when I first was learning about strength training and I went through sort of personal training certifications and I had friends that did bodybuilding competitions. I've gone to CrossFit classes before. I think it's really fun. But you're going to have different goals as an endurance athlete. So if you're a runner or a cyclist, swimmer, or a triathlete, you're going to have different goals athletically than if you're a bodybuilder. Okay, bodybuilding or bikini competitions, those type of athletes, it's a sport, and they have a very specific goal to build muscle for a specific purpose, for a specific aesthetic look. And they are going to do very little cardio, generally speaking. And I don't necessarily think that's always healthy either. But it's for a different purpose. If you're an endurance athlete like I am, like my clients are, you're performing, you want to perform at a certain level. And our goal with strength training in these sports is not to build the biggest muscles possible and to have the most muscle mass possible, but the goal is to have strength in our muscles and our bodies and our joints and our tendons and to support our sport. Having strength training regularly in your plan is going to prevent injury, is going to help you stay healthy more. Unfortunately, we're going to have future episodes more on injuries and overcoming them. Injuries are part of the game when it comes to being an athlete. I don't know any athletes, I think, that have never ever been injured. It's going to happen at some point if it hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean it's going to be a career-ending injury, but you're going to have something niggle. But the more we strength train and work on our technique and our sport, the less injured you will be. And we have the science to prove that. So, one thing, we need to remember is that, again, in these sports, in these endurance sports, we spend hours on our bikes or running or swimming. And so we don't have a lot of time for anything else. And I think that's usually what gets people. When I have new clients come to me and they're asking me, Mandy, I know that you did a lot of personal training, but Like, how do I find time for strength training? I don't have any more time. You already have me swim, bike, running, 12 hours a week. And I say, well, we need to look at the big picture. My goal is not to make my athlete work out 20 hours a week if they're not a professional, or they're not doing training for a full Ironman, but it's to look at their goal and their history, and then doing the work that is necessary to help them stay healthy. Okay. So taking time for the right strength and mobility work will help keep you injury free and help make you stronger, faster, and just an all around better athlete. You don't have to be fancy when it comes to endurance, fitness, endurance athletics, and strength training. You don't even need a ton of equipment. It's about functional movement. And this was a change in my thought process as well, because you can do too much strength training as an endurance athlete as well, especially in triathlon or in running. If you're training for a marathon or an Ironman, and you're a week out from your race, you don't need to be squatting, your max effort squat weight. Okay. Every time you do that strength workout at that max weight, you're going to, break down some muscle fibers, and your body has to recover from that and build back those broken down tissue. And during a week before a race, you don't want your body to be worried and stressing out about that. It does provide stress, and you need to be in like a recovery period where you're going to be repairing muscle and preparing for your race. Okay. So I get asked a lot, so how often do I need to be strength training if I'm a runner, a marathon swimmer, a cyclist, or a triathlete? And I'm be honest, 2 to 3 times a week of functional strength training is enough if your main focus is on endurance sports. 2 to 3 times a week. In your off season, and I could have a whole nother podcast, and I think I will in the future, on kind of arranging your season. But in your off season, 3 times is more ideal. You're likely to not be having as many long sessions outdoors or on a trainer. So you should have more time to work in that strength training. And more importantly, even if some of our athletes still do a lot of long training sessions in their off season, depending on what they're training for, but more importantly, you're not needing to save your muscle and body for the race performance. You want to use that off season to build the muscle and to build the strength in your tendons and ligaments to help you in that next season and work on those muscle imbalances and whatnot. During your busy racing season, 2 shorter sessions to maintain your mobility focus on your core, and I'll get into that in a minute, is enough. I would say, my amount of strength training I do varies throughout the year. So for example, if my A race, right now, my A race is in, my first A race of the year this year is in May. It's in 6 weeks. So right now I'm in just a maintenance phase for my strength training. I'm doing like twice a week. And I do a lot of core and functional work. And I still do some lower body work, because that power comes from my legs, especially with running. But you will not see me, deadlifting 200 pounds or anything like that right now. But then after I recover from my marathon, I will likely add in another session of strength training until I get closer to my next big race. So it's going to vary throughout the year. Okay. And I encourage you to do that as well. I see way too many triathletes and runners and marathon swimmers just skip the strength training because it is time consuming, not as time consuming as their long sessions, but they're tired and they have lives and they don't want to take that time to add that in. I'm talking about 30 to 45-minute session, you guys. You do not need 2 hours in the gym to make it be appropriate. 30 minutes, sometimes even 20 minutes of core work after a run. I will do that. I will get down on the ground after my run, do 20 minutes of some core work, and then work on some stretching and mobility, and really work on that. And that is good as well. You can do it all from home. You don't even need to go to the gym for this kind of stuff. Certainly you can. I'm fortunate enough that over the years, my husband and I have, we've been in the fitness field for a long time. So we've built our home gym up over the last 2 decades. But not everybody has that abilities. So, if I'm going to tell you guys to have any things at home to do this kind of, the most basic strength training, I would recommend that you invest in a stability ball, a pair of dumbbells, light and medium, or light, medium, heavy, and some sort of resistance band or bands. You can get them off Amazon, where they come in different strengths, and you can like wrap them around your thighs to do bridges, and stuff like that. So if you have to just limit it to a few things, those would be like the 3 things I would recommend getting. And there's other things you can add in there, but those, you don't need to go to the gym for this stuff. And honestly, you can do a lot of functional work and strength work with using your body weight, especially getting started. I would actually recommend that, so you can feel how it really feels first before you add any sort of resistance. So I hope that's like a little bit of an intro on why you should be doing strength training along with your endurance work. And the more certifications I've gone through, they do stress it a little bit more these days. The running certification that I went through definitely recommends doing power, plyometric type work and agility type work as part of your strength training routine. Core work is emphasized across all the disciplines because you use your core in everything you do. You use your core in running. When people are crossing their arms across their bodies when they're running, it's a good indication that their core is not being engaged correctly. On your bike, if you're you engage your core just to sit up and maintain your balance on your bike, and you may not even realize it. I got on my bike and rode 2.5 hours or so a couple weeks ago outdoors for the first time in a while, because I've been training for this marathon, and my butt was so sore the next day. That's part of your core. Your core is everything between your shoulders and your hips. So your glute muscles are included in that complex. And swimming, you use your core the entire time. I didn't realize how much I used my core in swimming until I had an injury where I had a herniated disc in my back, and I could not engage my right glute muscle. It would not contract at all, even though I was like trying, and I would sink if without being able to engage that muscle. And I really realized during that injury how important my core is in all 3 disciplines that I do. There's in every time there is some sort of injury, your knee hurts, your calf hurts, your IT band hurts. If you go to any physical therapist about these issues, they're going to have you doing some sort of core work in that physical therapy to rehab the area. So it just tells you how important that core is. And again, core is not just your abs, it's shoulders, anything between your shoulders and your hip bones. So that includes our entire abdominal wall, our low back, our mid back, our glutes, our hips, our hip flexors, and everything in between. Okay. So I'm going to go through some of like our over our body parts and what you can do when you're kind of setting up your own little strength training routine. So our upper back, we use a lot in swimming, obviously, all phases of your freestyle stroke, and also supports you in your aero position on your bike. You actually also engage your lats in your arm swing of your run. And so even though we don't think of our upper body much when we think about these, our running and our biking, it is actually utilized to support your core as well. Pull-ups are probably one of your most basic exercises that you can do if you get some sort of pull-up bar. I have an assist band I got offline that I can use to help assist pull myself up. And women are going to have a harder time with pull-ups than men, but, work yourself up by just pulling and holding and then lowering back down. If that is too difficult, you can also do a dumbbell pullover. And if you don't know what that is, you guys, since I'm recording this, it's hard for me to show you in this specific video. There will be future videos to come out on my YouTube channel showing some of these exercises, but a dumbbell pullover, you can look that up on Google, is another exercise you can easily do from home. Your hamstrings are the back of your legs. Those are utilized again in all three disciplines. It boosts the pull through in both running and cycling. And to utilize and strengthen your hamstrings, you can do a stability ball roll in where you're going to pull the stability ball in towards your glutes, laying on your back. You can do single leg deadlifts. Deadlifts are probably one of the most important exercises any of us can do because they utilize your core, your glutes, and your hamstrings. But I highly recommend that you guys work on those single leg exercises because most of us have a stronger side. And if we are constantly just doing double, like using both sides at the same time, we're not going to strengthen that weaker side more. So work on using those single leg. And same thing for a squat for your quadriceps for the front of your leg. You want to work on the single leg exercises. The other thing I want to point out is with your hamstrings and glutes can get super, super tight with running and biking and swimming. You use your hips a lot in swimming from the kick. You should be kicking from your hips. So make sure that you're taking a lot of time to stretch at the end of your strength training routine or at the end of your exercise because they get super, super tight, and that can also increase your risk of injury. Your chest, you don't think as much of using again in these sports, but you do use it throughout the pull phase of your swim. And a simple exercise we can all do from home is a push-up. You can start on your knees or even do it on a wall or a bench. But again, the push-up is something basic you don't need any equipment for. And then we go into our shoulders. Again, we're using our shoulders a lot in swimming, but you're also are actually utilizing them on positioning on your bike. And you want to keep your shoulders very mobile and loose so you don't hurt, you don't get those shoulder injuries that it can occur from swimming. Rotator cuff openers, where you just open up that shoulder complex with a band or with nothing are probably the best thing you can do. Your calves, again, I mean, I'm kind of going through our whole body here, but your calves, you push yourself off the ground and running. The faster you're trying to run, the harder you're trying to run, the more your calves are getting engaged. I've noticed this lately as I've really tried to pick up my pace and my cadence in my run as I'm trying to get faster. At my marathon pace, that my calves have been a lot tighter because of landing more with proper form. You're going to push off more from that calf muscle. To get those calves stronger, calf raises, you don't even need any weight added. And agility exercises, one leg hops, even burpees can help strengthen your calves. And then we go into our glutes. Again, these are super important muscle in all phases of running, healthy hips for swimming and biking. And you're going to that's when you want to work those put the band around your leg and do those glute bridges, those clamshells, and without the band, reverse lunges and single leg squats are what I would recommend. And core is everything with, like I've said about 10 times, and I don't mean doing 100 sit-ups. Planks are your friend. Keeping your back flat, your core engaged, planks, okay? Pilates is also a wonderful exercise to incorporate as a triathlete, a runner, a swimmer, because you're engaging your core in those long, strong muscles. People also ask, well, how many things do I do? 2 to 3 sets, 12 to 15 reps. To start is fine. You start with those two sets of exercises and work your way up to 3. And I also, recommend that you start, with total body, starting with twice a week, total body, write down those muscles I talked about and writing an exercise to target each one and kind of write yourself out a little routine and start with that. People have asked me what I think about going to classes, and I love group fitness classes because, you stay motivated to go. And I think some of them can be really awesome for runners, swimmers, cyclists, and triathletes. And some of them can be dangerous depending on where you are in your race season. If you have Pilates, always, especially with a good instructor, always a good idea. Um, I love body pump, which is like a barbell class. It targets your whole body. I think it's a wonderful program, but I would recommend I would argue that is better more in your off season, because it is a fairly intense program. And I think it would be hard to do that regularly and then race like the next day. And if you can do like a shorter version of it, that would be good. CrossFit, again, off season would be my recommendation. Now, if you can go to a CrossFit gym, they often will do a lot of those like sprint a mile and then do the workout and then sprint another mile. If you can take out that cardio portion and just do the strength portion, it's actually usually pretty decent for you, if you have a good box. I think that's what they call them. But make sure you're going to a gym that knows your goals and knows what you need to do. And I used to go to my triathlon place that I trained at in Indianapolis. The owner of that gym, Fitness Lab in Indianapolis, Whitney, created Crosstopia, which she's a CrossFit instructor, and it was very similar, like used some of the methods from CrossFit, but it wasn't the same. But she definitely made it more triathlete friendly, because there's no need for us to go sprint a mile and then do a bunch of 100 pull-ups and then sprint another mile. So just be careful with that. Yoga is wonderful for all of us, but be careful. Go with, go in gently. You can't overstretch if you're not careful, but it is a really good thing to be a part of, especially, to engage that core and to lengthen those muscles. But again, be careful and make sure that you don't go in too hardcore right out the bat. So those were kind of my basics. Coming out the gate. I know it's probably, you might have 100,000 questions, and you can feel free to drop them in my comments and I can try to ask them. For my athletes that I coach, I do put strength training and core training in their training plans. Some of them are better than others at doing those exercises, but I do put it on there for them and encourage them to do it and not skip it. But I also am realistic. Again, if you're on your bike and you're swimming and you're running 10 hours a week and you're working full time, you're unlikely to have, another 10 hours a week to do strength training. So, we keep them short and focused. And I also try a lot of times to work them into your run. So you may do your glute bridges and your core work before your run, and then do some planks right after your run to encourage that. But again, it all is season dependent. And so if I'm in, that January time frame where you may not have a lot, races for several months, that's the time to do that heavier strength training. So I hope this was helpful. I know it's just me today and probably not as exciting as an interview. Those will be coming soon. But I just wanted to share some of my knowledge when it comes to strength training. And I'm constantly thinking about different ways to help athletes recruit more of those muscles and strengthen our bodies so that we do get hurt less often. The biggest thing I can say is pay attention to your body. We all have muscle imbalances. I have muscle imbalances, and they always make me remember, I need to be more careful and more cautious about this. Every time I've gotten lazy about doing, especially the core work, and those stability and mobility exercises, is when I start to feel things hurt. So don't skip them, because it will catch up with you, is my main advice. And I hope that this was helpful. And start today. Add in some planks at the end of even before bed. Get on the ground and do, 30 seconds of planks. Start on your knees and work your way up to your toes. And if you're not a triathlete, doing strength training is still important. It helps reduce our risk of osteoporosis. It helps our metabolism speed up as we get older. So it's better for weight maintenance. But always start safely and, at your level. It's not a competition with this stuff. That's the other thing I worry about sometimes, those classes, is you can go in and be competitive like I can be, and then you can hurt yourself. So be careful. So hope that's helpful. And again, like anytime, you can always ask questions in the comments or reach out to me on my website. And I hope that we can help you feel confident about adding more strength and mobility training in your training programs. Thanks, guys.